And it's all free. I mean, that's what we, yeah. That'd be great.
Anyone else? Also, like, bring your pet to work there and you're gonna make your dog work.
I was just talking, so their CIO sits on the Technology Association board with me and I was talking to her about that. And it's a struggle because they've invested so much in that space.
Just one guy?
We're not moving.
No, we're a firefighter and a nurse.
Yeah.
We offer to you.
That's very good. Thank you.
Ready.
I hadn't heard that.
Give it a couple minutes.
You have a cat and it's not a problem.
How's it going?
Just remember the. Yeah, a lot of companies have gone with the forced yearly back in X amount of days. I was talking to them about that. So they have tremendous backlash.
Yeah.
It's, you know, it's just an interesting case. You had tremendous backlash. A lot of them I met.
They didn't know anything else. Do they know that? I have a Jonathan using this as a.
So it's like cases, they go multi-million dollar addition, minutes for their IT actually, go ahead. And then it's sitting there and I'm like, well, we didn't build this for it to be empty. So you're gonna come back in. And they're like, no, we're not. Because we can go anywhere else and come back in full time. So you need to come back in. So they didn't have mass exits.
Yeah.
And so you see a lot of companies that force station too far. People just leave because they can go across the street and flex. Maybe they're in the office 2 days a week. I guess what I do, plus my team is in the office 2 days a week. There's some that are, some that are paid. You have some flex.
Yeah.
And that works.
Is there any part like this? There's our opportunity.
Yeah, no, that's good.
No, we don't downsize.
Fairly valuable position.
They are. So, I mean, but I'll tell you that when they walk away, they hit the recruiters and they're hitting up my staff, a lot of other staff companies. So they're filling the roles and they're hitting headhunters that are having to pay a lot of money salary that try to pull somebody and they stay in the fee. So I don't know if they're, what's that?
They're the worst. People that aren't.
Yeah. I can hire. I've hired several people because he's in Pennsylvania.
Ian, we got. Okay, we'll start. We got a public hearing first.
Are we?
We're on. All right, we're here. Go ahead and call the public hearing to order for the proposed use of save revenue for an athletic facility infrastructure project.
Josh?
Here.
Nathan?
Here?
Melissa? Here. Mindy? Here. Andrew?
Here.
And we have Abigail tonight.
Any public input?
I have not received any written comments.
All right.
And I don't believe we have anybody here tonight.
All right, guys, come on in.
Oh, no. Oral comments.
Are any of them here for the public
Public
hearing?
hearing. No. I was like, we do?
Okay.
Okay.
All right, well, if anyone online in virtual world wants to see all that is posted on the website. We'll go ahead and adjourn the public hearing. And we will call to order the regular meeting.
Okay, we have Josh,
Here.
Nathan,
Here.
Melissa, here, Mindy, here, Andrew,
Here.
and Abigail. Here.
Okay, have we seen the agenda? Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, anybody for public forum? All right. All right, oral reports, announcements and celebrations. Looks like we've got some guests here.
We do. We have some celebrations that I'm going to start off with. We're going to invite everybody, come on in. The gentlemen that are coming through the door, these are a cross-country boys state team and their coach, Aaron Thomas, and Ian Smith, as our athletic director, is here, and Troy Stout, also one of the coaches. So I'm going to turn it over to Ian and let him take it from there. So welcome, everyone.
Okay, well, as you can see, we did win a big trophy, so it was amazing fall. All of our sports teams had a great fall, and it's highlighted to these gentlemen here. I'm gonna go ahead and read you guys what Troy Banning wrote that we read at halftime of the last football game. This just kind of sums up how amazing this team was. So, these guys they won the state title last year, so they were favored to win their second straight championship throughout the regular season. And the Gilbert boys proved they're not only the best team in 3A in 2024, but arguably the best 3A team ever. With 4 runners finishing in the top 12 and all 5 runners finishing in the top 16, the Tigers capped a perfect season with their 5th 3A state title in the last 11 years. Gilbert's team score of 33 points set the 3A state meet record, and it's also the lowest point total in all classes since the state shifted to 4 classes for cross country. Jacob Talbin, Logan Blight, Carson Squires, Emmett Barber, Emmerich Ryan, John Arts, Preston Stensland, one of the greatest 3A teams ever assembled. So we really had a neat fall. We got to host 2 home meets this year. And for those of you guys that don't know cross country, though, you want a lower score. And at our home meet, we came in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, or the district meet. And I don't know, Coach Thomas, we were trying to think, has that ever happened before we went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in a district meet? And we couldn't remember if that's ever happened. So they kind of set the stage there at Iowa State. Thankfully for Iowa State for letting us run out there. And at the state meet, it was, unfortunately for our team, kind of a foregone conclusion that these boys were going to win it, and they did it in style. Like I said, setting the record with only 33 points. So that is simply amazing. And Coach Thomas, hats off to you. It's his 5th state title. So he's, yeah. So these guys, there's a lot to be proud of here, and they're just a great group. And I had to laugh because they won the state title on Saturday. And if you guys know where my office is, I'm looking out there, I'm like, world, they're out there running right on Monday. What are you guys doing? Take a break. And nope, they had another big race this weekend. They went up, was in South Dakota. Yep, they raced in a regional race in South Dakota. And there was a bunch of teams there from 6 different states, and they got 11th there. So that was amazing too. So you guys, you are awesome. Coach Thomas, Coach Dowd, do you guys want to say any words?
No, I just appreciate the recognition. Thank you, Ian, for putting this together. Thank you for everybody for their support this year. I'll keep it kind of short. These guys have been amazing all year. It's been a blast to be around them and to watch them and how they handled. They just really stayed loose all year, even with the pressure that kind of being the favorites the whole year. So again, it's been a really fun ride, and really proud of all these guys.
Yeah, I'll kind of echo what Coach Jeff said there. First of all, thanks just for recognizing these guys and the work they put in. I think what was most impressive, just all season they were the favorites. They came in as the favorite, and kind of all year they had that tag of being the favorite, but they never either let the pressure get to them, or they felt a lot of the pressure. And on the flip side, they still were very respectful of the competition. They never thought like, oh, we've got this, all we have to do is show up. They never had that really arrogance with them. There's just a quiet confidence that they carried themselves with. And we talked in the summer about just trying to get better and improve themselves. Don't worry about anybody else. And they really held to that and just did what they could to get better themselves. And it was a lot of fun to work with, and just a good group of guys, and a lot of fun to coach.
Let's have, if you wouldn't mind, each of you go through, tell us your name and what year you are.
Logan, I'm a sophomore.
Landon Junior.
I'm Jacob, I'm a sophomore.
Preston, junior.
Carson, I'm a junior.
I'm Emmerich, I'm also a junior.
Emmett, I'm a senior.
Just one senior, or do
Well, there's another senior, but he couldn't be here yet. What?
What are you?
I'm a few years past the senior.
Well, that's the other thing too, is that I don't think it was mentioned. Do you all remember how many points the next team had? Do you, the number 2 team?
78.
78. Coach would know. So congratulations to all of you, but I will also want to say, make sure you give your parents an extra hug. Because I have learned a lot about cross country as I've come to a few more meets in the last couple of years, and watching your parents run all over the course like it's running up the bowls, because you guys are so fast they have to go from one point to the other point to get to see you at the finish line is incredible. So make sure you thank them as well.
Coach, I will say, you're not only recognized by Gilbert people, but when I travel the state and I say, well, where are you from, Gilbert? They say, oh, you have that amazing cross-country program. That's the first thing they say when people say that. So you guys, again, the whole state has recognized how good you guys are. So thank you so much. It's neat to see.
Yeah, excellent, John. It's great to see that. So next year running more, or would you know what the plan is after this?
I'm kind of getting bombarded with college recruiters. So, yeah. I'm hoping to run in college, so don't know where yet, but yeah.
The other thing too is they won't say it, but there's, standing in front of you is not only excellent athletes, but scholars, and they're in our community, they have jobs, they're doing lots of things. So congratulations to all of you by balancing all that as you help us shine here in Gilbert.
Yes, we appreciate what you do for Gilbert, and you might not think you're doing anything for Gilbert, but you really are representing us very well. Good job, boys.
Congratulations.
Well done, well done.
Great
Thank
job.
you.
Thanks for coming out. Thanks, Eric. Good to see you, Trent. Okay, just a couple, I'll just keep going if that's okay. We also want to recognize and just mention, we'll have more celebration coming up, but congratulations also to our football team that did great on Friday night. They're kind of wrapped up their season, but they did an amazing job down in Pella. So we want to congratulate all of the football team and the coaches and volunteers and parents. Because it's a big commitment as well. And then also we had, I think I put that in my report or somewhere, that we had a cheerleading competition and they received 4th in that. And last but not least, as far as competitions, WHO did a story on Irene today, who is our amazing chess player. And so if you haven't seen that, be sure to check it out because it's a great story. And she's won an international award, and we're very proud of her and doing great things there. So also wanted to mention just a couple other things before I forget. Your snack for the board this evening was prepared for you by the nutrition department of the cornbread, and then and the butter, and then the honey that it was drizzled with was from our own FFA program with the honeybee harvest, honey harvest. So, and I think Jason, did you get those pictures? Jason has a couple pictures he's going to share with us. And then I have a couple of bits of information about that I want to share. So Adam Davis leads this group in FFA, and this is Keith Boldman, who is a community member that donated 2 hives with supers. This is what Adam wrote for me, so just so you know, which is space to hold extra honey. That's what the supers are. In the fall of 2023, he also donated all of the processing equipment, which students were able to help with for our first honey harvest in October of this year. And he says, Adam Davis went on to say that apparently you buy bees by the pound, and Keith bought 6 pounds to fill up 2 hives with nearly 100,000 honeybees. And the Intro to Ag students helped with the harvest and collected a total of just over 4 gallons of honey, most of which they took home with them as a class souvenir. So I just thought it was great that he shared a little jar with me. And so I thought it would be great to share with all of you. So
Thank you.
yeah, so I'm grateful to Taysa when I said, do you have something you could make that we could drizzle with honey? And she said, hey, how about some cornbread? So that's your snack for this evening. So celebration to them. And then 2 other big celebrations that I have for you is the new website. I don't know if Jason, you're able to pull that up. It is officially live as of about an hour ago. So this is exciting, and it is here. We hope everyone will go check it out. Troy had me make a quick video that we were able to do just about some tips and things to look for. And there's some menu buttons there, and to hopefully everyone will get all the information that they need and some added features, and hopefully everyone will enjoy that. It has been at least a year in the making. And what was important to Troy Banning about this for us, which I thought was great, is that it was customized for us based on the needs and our readers and and all the great activities and things we have to share. So that is live if you want to check that out. And then the last piece of celebration that I had to share tonight, I mean, there's so many, but the next 3 days are big days in Gilbert. And that is that we have 10 teachers from each building going to the Leader in Me Symposium, which this year is in Des Moines. And so it's going to take all of us working together for the next 3 days. We'll have a lot of substitutes in the building and so that our staff can go. And the reason we made the decision to send so many, as you know, we're implementing Leader in Me or essential habits across the district. These symposiums usually are across the country. They're in Florida, they're in Colorado, they're in wherever, Arizona. And this year happened to be Des Moines. So it was an opportunity that we just couldn't pass up. So we're sending as many people as we can. I will be there as well, and along with our administrators and teachers from every building, as we're learning. It's a really neat, the first day is the pre-conference where we're learning executive skills, and then the second day is actual school visits. So we've all signed up for what schools that are Leader in Me schools that will be getting on buses and going out and observing and touring schools. And then you come back at the third day, our typical conference with different sessions for different grade levels. So the elementary will be in sessions, the high school, middle school will also get to have
Does that come up
sessions.
to our school at all,
So-
from Des Moines or not?
Nope,
Okay.
we are not part of that this year. My hope is in the future that we would be asked to do that. So we're very excited about that opportunity and ask everyone for patience and grace with things like dismissal and things over the next 3 days. But it should be a wonderful opportunity for everyone to learn together. And that concludes my celebrations and announcements.
Administrative reports, department updates.
You have your department updates in front of you. I don't know if there's any questions from there. I don't know if I put it in there, I don't know, but I wanted to also mention the celebration, and I want to thank all of you for our board work session that we did together. I thought it was very time well spent. I thought we did a lot of great work together, and I really appreciated Lou from ISB facilitating with us. So any other questions about it?
I always appreciate the department updates. That is a great document. You can express to staff just how important that is to at least me.
I agree.
Yes, a lot of
That is a really important document. So when I feel it, like, I love seeing it pull up, that feels like we really get a good understanding of what's going on in the school.
It also is good for, it's funny, it's just making sure we're reading each other's, because, we're all busy going so many miles, and it's like, oh, have you taken a minute to read that, because you do, it triggers idea, oh, let me go ask that person about that, so, good, appreciate that feedback, I will pass it on.
Yeah, I think a lot of great content. It's also good to see the progression on some of the different recurring themes. So I'm sure it takes some time, but it's time well spent.
Certified enrollment update.
With the certified enrollment update, just a couple things we wanted to share here. Our enrollment has been certified, and it has changed a little bit of where we thought it was going to be. We are still down 17 students. Before it was about 20, so that's changed just a little bit. Gail has some information up there, which I don't know, Gail, if you had anything you wanted to point out. But before we get to that, what I wanted to share is, can we go back to the chart? Is that yeah. It's hard to see in here, but on your computers, you can see it. This is an important document because it shows the certified enrollments according to Heartland AEA and our districts within that. And you can see if you scroll all the way to the bottom, it's about 51% of districts have gone down in enrollment, and many of those were a surprise. And as we talked about before, some of the conversations have been around the voucher system and some families taking advantage of that for their families and having that choice. So it's something we're looking at, and we'll continue to monitor. Gail, did you have any more you wanted to add or anything about that chart?
No, I know there was at least one district in this list that did not have a decrease, but they were expecting, they only received 50% of what they expected for this year. So it's a large district, so they did not see a loss, but they only saw 50% of what they expected to see as an increase. Other than that, I did provide a detail of kind of the movement of the compared to the previous year. And of course, part of that difference is the incoming kindergartners and an outgoing senior class. So the difference there.
And if you recall, and some of you may not have been here at that time, but when we did this study with RSP, that's one of the things they said, look at your Story County birth rates, and then look at the number of kids that are going out of your senior class. And as those birth rates, you want to see them increase. As far as when you're looking at enrollment for the school, that they are not seeing the bigger numbers coming through. And we have talked a little bit about that, I think, at the last meeting, but I did have a meeting with RSP about what they're seeing as trends. And that's one of the things that they said, that they are surprised they're not seeing those birth rates improve or increase for across the state of Iowa. In that, so that when they get to kindergarten, we're hoping to see those numbers go up. And she says she's not really seeing those trends. So she's going back over our report to look at that a little bit more closely, just to see, even though we're not doing a full study, we had talked about that last time, but just to see if there's anything else that they might go back and modify. The biggest comment she said about that report is that, which we knew this, but the longer you get away from the original report, the more there's variables that cause you to could be off a little bit, but they are going back and looking at that. And we'll continue to have conversations with them about that.
Now, the other thing we had talked about is COVID is definitely maybe about that 5 years.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And the other piece is that when we think about, okay, so we know we see building everywhere in our neighborhoods, our kids we're still going to be getting kids. It's sort of feel like it's not if, it's when, because we all know the building is taking place. And so we'll need to continue to look at that, but also making some decisions about bringing the matrix back to all of you to look at open enrollment. That might be something we want to have a work session on. Moving forward, we have till March if we're going to make some changes on the open enrollment. Or not. I mean, we might say, no, we're good, we're gonna hold and see what next year brings, and there are a few things we can bring forward and discuss there too.
We built that as a tool, and we use the tool as appropriate when needed.
Correct. There's a little room for wiggle room in that tool for us to look at. It has not been changed. I don't know. I mean, not since I've been here, but it was developed years ago. It has stood the test of time. I think I've shared, other districts have called us and said, what's this matrix and how do you use it? It's been very effective for us. But there might be a little bit of wiggle room if we decide we want to do that. So.
And I understand, because we had discussed this before, teachers currently that reside out of the district are not able to bring their kids in, correct?
Correct.
And that was a step that we potentially considered at one point.
Correct. And that might be something that we talk about it, like I said, in a work session, we might want to go back and revisit that. I had a teacher talking about that today to say, have we thought about ever going back to that, of saying, if you work in the district, you can bring your kids here and those kinds of things. So those are some things that we could talk about in such like a work session and make some recommendations and decide how we want to do that.
Gail, again, we use 1% growth for future forecasting models. Is that what we're using?
Well, actually, no.
No.
We did.
You want to wait till we get to finances?
We did. No, that's all right. So the current model is showing for fiscal year 25, a 1.3 because of the current year we're in.
Yeah.
But the future, so like 26 through 29, we're using 2.5.
Okay.
So that's a big difference. Yeah, so we will definitely be making changes on that. As I currently, I haven't worked on it yet, but I will be working on 26 through 30.
Okay.
And so that would definitely have to change, and that will change.
What do you think?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess just throwing out for discussion now, what should we be using, we think, going forward?
Well, definitely, we need to reflect the actual,
Yeah.
the known. And then going forward.
Yeah.
This was a turn in the road, so, I don't know, that's a conversation I
Yeah.
think we should have.
I
I mean,
agree.
do we plan for 0, or do we plan for a 1%?
I think we can. I know we're gonna go with a full-blown enrollment study, but it sounds like these numbers. At least that have specifically impacted us are 1 or 2 private schools in the area, is that correct?
Correct.
So. We've had conversations with them before, just as we work together to figure out who's going where. You know, was this a one-time thing and now these schools are at capacity? And you know, I hate to hit the panic button right away.
Right.
Because it's possible that those schools took in what they could and they're at capacity, and it could be 10 years before a major capital project and they can expand again. My question is, I don't know that we're gonna see a big hit like this again. And I'm making an assumption here, but I think it's something we should look at and see. And I think those are, you know, staff level discussions that you just call and say, hey,
Right.
where are we at here?
They're great to work with. They've always been very forthcoming and it's, yeah.
Yeah, they're in it for the same reasons we are, plus
Absolutely.
maybe others, but.
Yeah.
We're all here for the same kids, so
That's right.
see if we can't work together, at least on some information gathering.
Well, guys, I think I mean, obviously you're on it, Gail, but I do think we gotta start running some scenarios at 0 and 1. I mean, I think
That's
that's
kind of-
my opinion.
Obviously, it's the no, you have to do the
Right.
no,
That's right.
because that's the immediate. But then going forward, I'm, you know, a 1% range until we have an idea of where we're headed.
Yeah.
I think it's more of the conservative instead of over forecasting, because what that does is drives our revenues up and also expenditures, and so we need to be careful, so we're more of a
I think
conservative.
1% makes sense
Okay.
for what you're saying, personal opinion, rather than 0.
I think that big senior class too, I mean, I think that was a big class we lost. So
That's right.
class coming is not very big.
Which I think we anticipate 2.5, so maybe the next 3-4 years we do the 1%. 1%, whether it's forward or backwards, 1% has kind of been the range. 1.3 is where we're at.
Yep.
We took a step back this year and it's a negative 1.1, so 1%, I'll use that going forward, and then
Perfect.
I'll let you guys know as we work on that.
It'd be important we, again, get all the information we can and we'll manage, not respond to this.
Real quick, sorry, I wanna get moving here too, but the matrix, I know we discussed it a lot and maybe making changes to it. I think at some point we just maybe have a separate, you know, work session where we just discuss that. Just to kind of start to run through some numbers and talk through it. So I guess once the board fully understands what exactly it is, other than just a bunch of numbers on a spreadsheet,
Right.
why it was put in place. And also maybe if we need to make changes, we can maybe just discuss some of those in that work session.
And that could be an enrollment work session
Correct.
in general.
Yep. And we don't have to even have to be in person. It can be over a virtual meeting. It
Yeah.
can be too. So since we're just kind of talking data and numbers.
You have Travis, work with him beforehand and have him come in and give his 2 cents on some of that.
I know we keep talking about it, I just think at some point, we probably just need to put some time into it. Maybe either decide we're gonna keep it or we're gonna make some adjustments to.
Well, and the timeline's coming up because if you remember, now we're back to a March deadline with that. So we'll have to make a decision before then. So we know how to notify everybody
Yeah.
too, so.
We do have a work session scheduled. I don't know if you saw that in the meetings to.
Of course I
the
saw
very
that.
bottom. But we have a work session scheduled with Travis the end of January. the last
Oh,
Monday.
yeah,
let's just tie that
But
in.
we are,
Yeah.
so we are working with Travis before that meeting.
Yep.
Because the current enrollment also affects our debt.
Mhm.
So there's many aspects of that. So, we are going to work together with, Christine and I are gonna work with him, a small group, and then we have a big work session where he'll do the financial projection and presentation.
We'll add that in there.
Is that too late, you think, for,
End of January?
yeah,
No, because if,
We
I
would have
think
to
if-
make a decision on the matrix in
if we,
February.
yeah, if we had to vote in February, then we'd be ready to go, because I mean, we'll see what Travis has to say, but if we decide to make a change, I feel like it would be a small subtle change.
Yeah.
And so it'd be easy to implement, so.
See if you can bring staff numbers to that on how many staff would bring their kids over to, because
That,
I
yes.
prefer to start with that and then the rest would be.
Yes, we could get some data ahead of time on that, and we did a survey, I feel like 2 years ago maybe, and there just wasn't a ton of interest, I think, if I recall, but you know what, it's time to ask the question again, so it's good.
All right. Mental wellness.
We have mental wellness coming up, the collective has a meeting coming up, and then I also think, Josh, did you have something you wanted to ask about that?
Yeah, the collect, so I've been on one of the groups in the collective, but if anyone else has an interest in that, they seem to be conflicting with work more often than they don't, so I want to make sure that this is, we're honoring that from the board perspective as much as possible, and I think it's possible that one of you can probably do that better than me right now, so if anyone has an interest. And I don't know that,
I have already agreed to be on a committee with the collective.
I'm on
I'm
one
sure
as well,
pull it
I'm on the
up.
community one.
I am on policy process and funding.
She's a policy
Yes, she
queen.
is.
Nice.
Shocker.
There we go.
and we don't have to have someone on every committee, it's just, I want to make sure that we're represented
Yeah,
on
Sounds
that.
like we are.
I think we are, I mean, I'm on one, Mindy's on one, but
Excellent. For your meetings at these times where this is for the program.
The next meeting, I think I have down is
Sorry,
6 o'clock on the 19th.
November, yeah. I can't make it. Yeah,
Next Tuesday.
I think she said like this is the team one.
But just something to think about as we go through, it's always something that we can pour more into as a board, but just keep it on the radar if you aren't, so they're really neat meetings to go to, it's especially good to go and see the student input that is there, so if you haven't been to one already.
Okay.
Uh,
Next.
Reading plan.
Yes, next up, we have our reading plan, and our Director of Teaching and Learning, Carrie Clark, is here to guide us through this exciting information.
Excuse me, it is exciting. Right, Jason, you got help here? Yeah, there, awesome. Okay, so what is House File 2618? Wow. It's a bill that was put into place that aims to improve reading proficiency in schools by requiring evidence-based reading instruction and personalized reading plans for students in grades K through 6. Now there's four. Actually, you can skip that one and go to the next. So there's four major components that affect us as a district through this new law, I guess. So we have to focus on the science of reading in our literacy instruction. We have notification requirements for our K through 6 families. We have to put into place personalized reading plans for certain students. And then we have to allow parents or guardians discretion for grade retention in grades 4 through 6. And I'll get to all of those points in just I'll get all of those points now. So the first one is the science of reading. Now, this is put into place that the bill emphasizes that all districts have to implement evidence-based reading instruction methods based on the science of reading. Well, you can see elementary, intermediate, middle school, we've done all of those things already. So we're already well on our way to doing all that's listed as part of this plan. So in those 3 buildings, we've already implemented professional development that is centered around the science of reading and what are those best practices in the teaching of reading. At the elementary and the intermediate. Now, you probably think, well, what about the high school? We have done some of this at the high school, but everything that has come down is starting at the elementary level and is trickling down from there. So we are heavy at the elementary and intermediate because that's really where you're teaching reading. I mean, we say that by the time you get to 4th grade, you are flipping from learning to read where you're now using reading to learn. So that's why you're gonna see a heavier emphasis at the elementary and intermediate levels. When we talk about where it says all reading teachers are either in or signed up for training through the Department of Education called letter training, that's something that came out about a year ago around this time. And what that is the DE put that into place, which is letters training is a fantastic training in best practices in teaching reading. The way that they rolled it out, there was some question maybe, I mean, the way they signed the contracts and all that, whereas we learned about it after we'd already planned our professional development and kind of how our dollars were gonna fund. Now, if we went to pay for this training ourselves, it would cost us thousands and thousands of dollars to train the amount of teachers that we're having trained. The DE is paying for all of that. What comes into play there is all of that happens outside of teacher contract time. They're doing all of that training, they're doing all of that work outside. Now they can use some of what they're doing in the classroom, they can use that as they're implementing some of that, but the actual learning itself is all happening outside of their contract day. So one thing that we've done is, so there are 8 modules that teachers go through, and the modules are probably approximately 30 hours of work per module. And then they have to do, it's a lot of work. And then after each module, they have to do a Zoom session that's required by the state, and they do that with the letters trainers, people that have been trained to do this. It's every teacher, we have every teacher that's teaching reading in this building, the intermediate 3-5, are all doing the training. And we have, I would say, at least 3/4 of our teachers at the elementary are doing that. Some of them, it just hasn't fit into their schedule as of yet, but the state is still opening time slots up, and every time a new section signs up, we've got people that are signing up. So we feel really good about that. And even those people that haven't exactly gone through that training, we've had some other trainings that have happened not through Heartland, but through an organization that we belong to. It's called MISIC, Mid-Iowa School Consortium, that does some professional development stuff with us as well. We are a member of that consortium, and so we've done some training through them as well. So we feel really good about where we are when it comes to the science of reading portion of that. The next piece is, what are the notification requirements? Well, we must notify all parents of students that are in grades 6 through 12 if their student is not proficient in reading. Well, what does that actually mean? The state is using one data point for this. And when we're talking grades K through 3rd, we're using the FAST data. That those of you that have elementary students or your kids have already gone through elementary, you might recall the A reading test and then what we call CBMR, which is a fluency test. It's a quick minute read, and you see how many words a minute your child can read. So the K through 3, we get to designate as a district if we're going to use the fluency test, which is that quick 1 minute read, or if we're going to use the A reading test, which is a little more comprehensive. We choose to use the A reading test. So if you're in a 3rd grader and you are not proficient, or K through 3rd grader, and you're not proficient on the FAST assessment, then you would be somebody that we have to inform. If you are a 4th through a 6th grader, we do the ISET, we do the A reading test for those kids, but we don't get to use that. We have to use ISES. That is a state requirement. We are not submitting those test scores to the state. They have access to that, and then they're pulling that. So they know who the non-proficient students are, just like we do, but they're gonna pull it from ISAS, whereas we can look at A reading and we can look at ISAS, and we've got kids that could be proficient here and not proficient here. That used to be the way it was, that we could say, well, but we're seeing that proficiency here. We know we're gonna have interventions in place to help them over here on the ISASS test. We still are doing that, but we have to report on an ISASS. So any student that comes up as non-proficient is going to get a letter, and we have a K3 letter and a 4-6 letter. And I know that you have that information in front of you, or you received that in your board packet of what those letters look like. Those letters they're very similar. The difference is for the K3 grade levels, we have to have an intervention in place for those younger grades, which we already had in place. We were already doing all this. Now we have to put that, we have to notify families this way, and we have to have a personalized reading plan for those kids. So we already kind of had the personalized reading plan because we have those kids at interventions. Now we've just formalized that. So in that formalized information that we send to families, we let them know what that intervention is in place. And then as each testing window for a reading comes up, we will let families know how their child has performed, which we've already been doing. Now, 4th through 6th grade, we send that letter out to, depending on where that child lands and what we're seeing with other data points, we're still going to progress monitor those kids, but we might not necessarily have them in a reading intervention. It just depends on what we're seeing as data. But we are still, all of those kids are going to be progress monitored, and we will be sharing all that information with families. So that's what that looks like. That's what that means. All right, personalized reading plans, I just talked about that. All of those students who are considered non-proficient have a personalized reading plan, which is housed on a website, a site that is called Panorama, we have access to that through the state. All of that information is there. Our instructional coaches in the 3 buildings are the ones that put those interventions in. They have all of that information housed. They keep track of all that progress monitoring. And we know when a student needs to move, if they're in one intervention and we see, oh my gosh, they're taking off, we need to look, what's the next intervention that's going to be put into place for that student? Or we say, you know what? We've seen a huge growth. Now we're just going to keep that progress monitoring in place, and we're going to take the intervention out because we don't think the child needs it anymore. So that's what that looks like. So the instructional coaches are the ones that are kind of looking at the data and moving back and forth with the classroom teacher, but that's what that reading plan looks like. Or that's what that reading plan is. All right, so the last piece is that this law did put into place was it gives the parents and or guardian the option to have that child be retained if they are. This is only for being non-proficient in reading. You could be non-proficient in math and that isn't going to be in place. But if you're non-proficient in reading grades K through 6, the parent can come in and say, we want that child retained. So all of this information is now gone out to parents. So a parent comes in and says, Jason comes in and he talks to the principal and the classroom teacher and he says, I want my child to be retained. Right now, we're going to say, this is too early to move on this. We've got a lot of the school year left. Those are conversations that would be had in the spring when you've got more data points that you're looking at. Now, in the letter that we sent out to families, we said, yes, this is what the plan, this is what the new law says, but we also said what the district's perspective on this. And we do respect parental choice. We always have and we always will. But we also have to say that we don't generally recommend grade retention as an effective strategy for improving academic performance. Now, we do know research does show that it can have a negative long-term effect on student social emotional well-being and academic progress. There are rare occasions when retention can be successful when combined with targeted support for the student's specific needs. We have had students retained. It's a conversation that you have with families. The difference again now is a family can say, we hear what you're saying, but this is what we want to do.
Was this like a big statewide problem requiring a legislative solution?
That's a really good question, Josh. I don't quite have the answer for that. I just know that I think this all comes from a lot of the whole parent choice thing, or, you know, making sure, and do we all feel that we need a lot of this in here that's been put into play is stuff we were already doing. We should be having those conversations with families. Families shouldn't hear at the end of the year, oh, your child is not proficient. Now, the thing when you're talking about getting that information about an ISAS test, a one data point, a one piece, one time a year, is we take that in April, mid-April. We don't get those results, hopefully we'll get them mid-May. So, but there's a lot of other data points that you're also talking about when you're talking about your a child's education. But I think this just comes down to parent choice and making sure that we're having those conversations with parents. So I think it's something that we've done, it's something that we will continue to do, but I did want to point out that the board policy, that board policy 505.02 is one that you all reviewed back in September. And you had all of this, all of these parts and pieces are put into that policy. Because we had talked about what does retention look like, you've got it all into place. So we are good to go when it comes to policy, how this all fits to what this new law is. But we just wanted to make sure that we're, you know, communicating what that information was that went out and why it was going out.
So there's no big deviation that we needed to make from what our
No.
current process was?
No, not at all. The only thing that we might have done is we fine tuned a little bit of things that we were already had in place. So
And
we felt good about that part.
I think that also, I have some experience with this particular house file in my previous experience that came something very similar. And it comes from sort of the place of, which is not something that was happening at Gilbert. If we're just passing kids on and not doing anything about it. And so that's really where this is, where it's grounded is, and if you're not reading by third grade, are we just passing you on to fourth grade and fifth grade and so on and so forth? And there's research around what it means of the percentage of kids that are non-proficient in third grade that impacts things in adulthood. And so that's sort of where this came from many years ago. And I think the practice of having people well-trained is obviously a good one, and formalizing a process to say, this is what we're doing for your child, and this is how we're going to go about it, is also really strong and important. So it's a little more work in the sense of making sure things are documented properly, but I think being able to sit down with as partners with parents to say, here's what we're doing, and parents feeling good about that helps our kids just be stronger in the end. And our teachers already have been doing great things, and this just brings it all together for them.
I got the letter as a parent. I like the way it was worded, so.
Yeah, and that's one thing that when you say that, Josh, that is one thing we did. We have a standard letter that the district has put together that goes out. So that it's not, we didn't want any, you know, to have to be crafted each time. No, that's just what the letter is, and then that just starts those conversations.
Any questions on that?
Great job.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Next, we have board reports, workshop review, which is a workshop that we did with Lou, right? Her name was Lou. Yeah, it was a really helpful experience. It was nice to get everybody together. It was nice to just talk about, you know, leadership, the district, how we do our jobs and make sure we're focused on the district. And I had a few takeaways myself on just communication and how and in what capacity and in what volume I communicate. So that was really good for me, as able to, you know, refine my own service on the board here. So what else? Anybody else have any good takeaways? Or we got an award for all of you all that are doing all of your continuing education.
Did we get that?
We did.
Nice.
I think, yes, we were honored at the
We will be.
We will be.
Coming
yeah,
up,
that's
we're
coming
gonna
up.
get to stand up at the point where they say, hey, you did this, you get to stand up, so I think we're gonna get to stand up, so. Thank you to all of you that were able to get that in.
Next year, I'm gonna knock it out of the park.
There you go.
Anybody else? I thought it was great.
Yeah, I think it was a great exercise, it's worth doing, it's plus what we should do. Maybe not every year, but every couple of years at least.
Especially, for within a few months, not too soon, but after, if we have a change of board members, it'd be good to. We have some kind of a workshop where we just do, hey, here's what school board is, but, once we've had some time to work together a little bit, I feel like it's a good one.
Like I said, and I mentioned it in the meeting, it's also a good reminder of what IASB can do for the board. I mean, they've got so many resources. Google was just one of them, but there's so many people there that just literally work for us as board members to get the information that we need. So it's always good to connect with them anytime we can.
All right, policy committee.
We have no report because we have not met yet this month. We meet Wednesday night.
Good report.
Exciting things to come.
That's nice report.
I know, quickest one yet.
Next, the IASB 79th annual convention, that's next week. Deadline is 2 days from now. So if you're not signed up, sign up if you can go. Good reminder.
Nathan and Dr. Trio.
I'm gone. First one I've ever missed. Cookies are good.
I'm like, do you want me to take one of those cutouts of you with me, like they do at the
Yeah.
football games?
Yeah.
It's something that we could, maybe we could, kind of have a conversation with them about maybe some virtual attendance options.
Yeah.
I don't know if we have a delegate or how we lobby that.
Breakouts.
But
Good idea. We'll put that in our.
I could probably attend more.
Yeah.
at that. Now, there is a tremendous value in going in person, and a lot of it is sitting around the table with other board members from different areas, but.
Mhm.
But we'll put that in our feedback, so how about that?
All right. Facilities reports.
Now it's time.
Thank you for patiently waiting.
Why don't we start with like middle school, elementary school?
Let's do it.
First projects.
Sure. Middle school, a lot of you just saw that. We had a tour at 5:30. It's looking very nice. We got a couple punch list things to button up, most notably the access control. The ADA auto open assist buttons aren't on yet, but that will happen this week. So I believe the plan is that they occupy starting next week. He didn't want to move in with a little bit of stuff still going on, so he's gonna hold off and we should be active in there next week. It's up in the air if the sign will be lit up at night by next week, but that's our goal. That was put up last week. It looks very nice. It's very sharp during the day, but you won't see it right now. But that'll be lit up between this week and next. For the elementary school, things are going as planned. It's less busy there now as we're waiting for our walls to show up, but steel and precast, we received confirmation today that those are on track for the December delivery. So that's when activity is really gonna pick up. You're gonna see a site that went from just kind of flat dirt and all of a sudden this building's gonna come up out of the ground. A lot of trucks will be coming through town, so we're gonna manage that as we should. We're in talks with the city and we'll keep them up to speed, but we're on schedule with the elementary school as well.
High school wise, we just sent that project out to bid. So in the last month or so, we've kind of done all our last meetings with Cindy and Ian, the maintenance staff, and got everything wrapped up. So that is currently out to bid. From how Stephen is making it sound, we've got a lot of interest similar to the elementary school. So December 12th is our bid day for that. So we'll have another bid opening that day and see where the cards fall. But overall, I think the design phase went really well and a lot of great staff to work with. It's always easy to work with you guys, and I think we're gonna have a great product.
Can you share the PDF?
And Lee's online there, everyone, just so we know who's in the room. Hi, Lee.
Hey guys.
Alright, good night, everyone. I'm Andrea. I've been working with Lee and Joe the last couple of months on the Gilbert District Office, and I have some renderings for you tonight. We can go to the floor plan. 1 second. So not much has changed on the floor plan. Really the last couple of days to massage is a reception area, but for the most part, this is what the floor plan is looking like right now. You can go ahead and go to the first render. So first image, we have the northwest corner of the building. I used the previous district office design as inspiration and as well as some of the images that Dr. T sent. And all the images had a couple of things in common, and that was the lighter material used on the building, the siding, and then they had wood accents to add some warmth to the building, as well as some contrast through the darker elements like the mullions and the roof. So that's what I tried my best to do on this exterior. So far, the entrance of the building is staying the same. That's what it's showing there, that vestibule. And then we're using that west side to show some of that signage. We have the northeast side of the building. Anywhere that you see a wood accent is basically either an office or some sort of meeting area. That's where you see all those wood panels there. We incorporated some larger windows on the north and south to enhance those facades. Those 3 larger windows there would be where your boardroom is. Then this is your back side. This is where the patio is. Lots of wood in this area. We tucked it back here to make it a little bit more private. I know we've been talking about how we wanted to make this as private as possible. Again, we copied those windows from the north side, and then I added a path to connect to that vestibule on the east. And then another view from the parking lot. Any questions?
Looks good.
So as she was mentioning, as you can see there, the windows that would be put in across the front, those are typically offices. And you've done a great job of putting together all the different inspirational photos that I sent her, so. You want to go back to the floor plan for just a minute so I can talk through that for just a second?
Make sure we take lots of pictures of the place beforehand too. It's like 100 years from now, it'll look really good in a museum.
Right? Troy Banning, put Troy Banning on that. Just to get familiar, so the way that it'll work is you can walk into the vestibule area, into the lobby, and the community can come into the boardroom. And with that, so we'd have our board meetings there, but also we want to make sure that, to your point that has been brought up, which I thought was great, is that if kids are presenting, it would be a place to bring kids if they were doing something that they wanted to share with either adults or with their other peers. And so that could also, because the space is close to a lot of our, right, in such a great location, that we could have kids in there as well. Also, you'll see if you just go, there's a reception area when you first come in. Jason, do you want to toggle? Do you see where I'm at? Where you come in? Right there. Thank you very much. And so that's the reception area that would be open and available to assist people. There is a small conference room you see at the very top up there. That's all public space. And then off of the reception area, sorry, Jason, to run you all around here. There's restrooms there. And then there would be a studio area for Troy Banning's communications, storage, and mechanical room up in there. All of that would be public access, which would be great. Also, the boardroom, as I mentioned, could be available for like a community meeting or something beyond a board meeting, which I think would be spectacular to have people in there. Or the Boy Scouts wanted to have a meeting or something, they could do that. And then you'll see if you go down into the office areas, that would be secured. There's a door just beyond the reception area, thank you, which takes us into office areas back in there, a conference room, a break room, and but places for people to work and get things done. And then We have a storage area just off of one office where, I don't know, somebody named Gail, who has a lot of things we want to keep for the district, so we're very grateful that she does that for us,
I
so.
don't have a lot of baggage, I just have a lot of documents.
That's right, that's right. So she has our documents ready to be stored. There's a small wellness area next to that, so if we had a mother that needed to use that area, or someone needed a private phone call or a private meeting for whatever reason, or maybe just a quiet moment, that would be the wellness room there. So that just gives you a little overview of what that looks like, and then we can go back to the outside, if you want to just pick one of them there, Jason.
Can I add something?
Yeah, please.
Just to give you kind of a perspective, the current space that we're occupying now is about 17 to 1,800 square feet. And so we would jump up to about 3,700 square feet. And so this room today was a photo studio, it was a board meeting, it was an office. If we had lunch in here,
That's true.
you know, this space gets used by a lot of people and it's pretty congested for the most part. So, you know, gaining that space, and then also the beauty of the design is there's the ability to go a little further south if we ever had to. There's also ability to expand the parking lot if we needed to. But we also like the idea of now we have a dedicated district or professional learning center in the boardroom, whereas we kind of move wherever we have space available based on what things are going on. Today, we can only fit about 4 people, get people sitting in the hallway, right? So it's gonna give us an opportunity to not only make it more comfortable inviting space for professional development and community events, but also a nice professional setting for when we have board meetings and things like that.
It's actually, I think, double. It's hard to think of it because we have offices here, we have offices there, we have people over here, we have storage over there. And so this actually doubles the space for us, but all in one space. And so it's really wonderful. And then, I don't know if we want to talk about due diligence on this building, or not. I don't know where that comes in, but I don't want to interrupt your presentation, so.
We're doing well from our perspective.
So as part of that discussion, probably about the timeline and a few of the options.
Yeah,
that
I
we
do
have
have some.
related to
is
that
there-
would be good.
Does anybody have any questions about that piece before I go into the due diligence piece?
Just, I've asked this before, how many again were the boardrooms sit or seat? Was it 40, 50, 30? Do we know what our,
50,
At least.
okay,
it looks like 50.
Yeah,
so you can, and I ask that just because there's sometimes, you know, I know we utilize the auditorium, which is something that's too big for, can we do certain things? And
yes.
I mean, 50 people, that's a good number, so we can do a lot of things there from a district or community standpoint.
The other thing is Kathy from CMBA has worked with us to put different table configurations together, where she has been able to, she's got some drawings, it's not here tonight, but where she has put those table configurations together in different ways, one in almost like this, where we're, you know, at tables facing one direction, and then one where you put the tables together. So you will have some options like that. So we can do professional development, we can do kids and group work, we can, you know, different things that, if we have a guest speaker, but we need a table, we will have that available.
You could fit an entire staff, one building's entire staff in there if they needed to do professional development for the day or another speaker.
Is, I know the note on there about not, we don't think it will require fire sprinklers, but could that trigger and essentially moving up an occupancy to an assembly type structure? Because that might trigger it for having a sprinkler it.
Now, the way this is currently laid out, it's more building size and in combination with the building use, to be my understanding, and the fact that the way it's built and has shaft walls in the plan, we should not need sprinklers.
Yeah, Lee, did you hear that question?
Yeah, I think we're
If
still good.
if it
Josh.
triggered an assembly category essentially with the boardroom, I just thought of that now.
Yeah, no, I think we'd still be under our.
I have a sound.
Oh,
Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me?
Are the board tables on the ground, or are they? Where the board?
We don't have any furniture picked out yet. So those will probably be flexible furniture pieces that you can customize to get what you want.
Yes.
yeah, you'd be able to move all of it.
The other, we want to, you know, we like being able to move around in the space, and so we'll work with Kathy on that. Gail will all weigh in on that. Also in that, One of the things that's nice in that boardroom too, there's some, we've talked about some millwork that had some counter space across, so if we were to host something, there's spaces for that as well. And then storage underneath there, which will also help for things like markers, papers, supplies, whatever slopes.
Can't end up getting Lee, I'll try to answer, I think he would probably agree with me, but you can have unsprinkled assembly type up to a certain square footage. So I don't think we're at that square footage threshold
Okay,
at that, so.
I would prefer that it be sprinkled, but we're also on a budget constraint.
And I know with the type of construction that it is, it's wood framed, and so all
He's
of
a
our.
firefighter
all our
too, so
square footage is
I'm the budget guy, I'm saying no.
No, yeah.
It costs a lot of money.
We're also the insurance guy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's all right. Doesn't say that much. It's expensive.
Oh, there.
Maybe.
Lee, did you agree with that?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
All right. I think I was muted earlier. I'm not sure.
good job.
I-
Jason.
I understand what you're saying, Josh. I think we fall under the 10% of the building area, so I don't think we'd be pushed into that. We are mixed occupancy based on it being over 750 square feet like that, but now if you want it sprinkled, that's different than probably needing to be sprinkled. So that's future discussion maybe.
It only makes sense to do it now.
Correct.
And I'm not saying we need to do it now, but if we're gonna do a retrofit is way more expensive than when you already got the building torn open.
That's why. I do like when you look at the exterior pictures that seems like we're using less expensive materials than on the newer concept. So it looks like we're able to save some money there and invest it in other spaces in the building.
Well, the exterior shown would be the exterior we included in the, so we included repainting the existing siding, ripping off the existing wainscoting, replacing that with the similar siding going down. So that is what was budgeted. would
Yeah.
be what's shown.
Yeah, I think that's a smart choice.
And again, on the parking, we don't know whether or not we have to expand that or not, kind of waiting for planning and zoning, just to tell us if we have to, or if we should out of the gate, or.
It's code based.
That's what I believe, we're fine parking, it's gonna be up to you guys whether you want more, but I don't think there's anything requiring more.
We did budget an expansion for parking, so that is.
And there's 25, I believe, spaces currently available.
Yep, 25 there right now.
And the note on the sewer. Or not, the storm sewer. Sign,
That sewer line, is that what you're
Yeah.
asking about, Josh?
yeah. Downspouts, couldn't find an outlet on those.
Yeah, I think we'll just have to dig into that. They assume that that's coming out in that ditch next to the road there. That would maybe be something we may have to pull back and handle on our own property if the city doesn't allow that to continue. But I don't think that's reason to back out.
No, I was just thinking about money as we keep going here. Related to the timeline, or the due diligence of the timeline and kind of how this. You know, the landlord versus closing date discussion.
So there's a couple things that I learned today since we had a facilities meeting this morning when we were talking about. So, we're in a due diligence period now, CMBA and De Novo wrapped up their information, which is shared with you. We just put that in this evening, so that's in there for you to read. Essentially, I don't know, Lee and Stephen, if you guys want to weigh in, but what it says is things look good. And one of the considerations that, for example, as I read through it, is the air conditioning unit is 14 years old, and that might be something that sounds like we want to replace and things like that. So I don't know, as far as due diligence, was there any highlight that you wanted to make? And you guys, I'm just asking for anything.
I think you already hit what I hit this morning in our meeting was the HVAC units are probably all gonna have to go. That drainage is a good one. Josh, you picked up on of whatever we may need to handle there, but other than that, there's nothing nothing significant from our perspectives.
So there was a question earlier today in the facilities about the due diligence period. If you recall, I believe it was 90 days, and that takes us to January 12th. I talked to Connor Wasson today to just go through this, and so the conversation that we talked about is one is, you know, how long is it and when will it be up? January 12th is what that looks like. But we're good to go as far as everything we've been doing and our teams and the things they've been working on. So the next question is that there is a tenant and a lease, and I believe that's up in June or July. And so what Connor and I discussed today is that he was going to reach back out to the realtor, the seller, and say that we're pretty much done with the due diligence and we're ready to wrap up. And then where are we? What kind of conversations have they had with the tenant? Is the tenant really planning on staying till the end of their piece, or are they interested or wanting to end their lease sooner than that? And our perspective on that is obviously we don't want to impact the tenant. We want them to have all the time that they have already been involved in. But for timeline purposes, we just need to know where we are. And is that something they're considering? So he's reaching out to try to get that information for us that we can pass back. A couple of things, there was conversations around when we take possession and things like that, and it would be after the lease time. And because we have a purchase agreement in place, we should be fine on all those pieces. But he was more than happy to have the conversation about, okay, we're wrapping up due diligence. Where's the tenant on this, and what's our next steps? And I said, we are interested in an earlier timeline if possible, but we want to honor the person that's there and their commitment that they've already made. We want to be mindful of that. So that's what I learned today from Connor.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see how that follow-up goes, because it worries me a little bit to have a purchase agreement floating out there for 6 months, 7 months. Depending, and it'd be, you know, how rock solid is the start date when we need to start touching the building. Since we might not need to make that decision tonight, as far as what that is, we can let them work with the real estate agent, but
what we can do is bring information back, and then if there's some decision that needs to be made, I mean, we may want to have a discussion at the next meeting about, do we want to move and take on a landlord tenant possibility? And, you know, I will tell you and have Connor weigh in on that. He did weigh in on it a little bit with me again today. He feels the same as he did before, that he's not sure that that's in our best interest. He feels good about the agreement we have. He understood what I was saying. But he said it's okay, you know, he could understand if we wanted to have that conversation in a month, depending on what comes back.
Yeah, I think that would be a useful exercise to know the options, have the information, because there's risk either way.
Correct.
And
That's
we wanna-
exactly what he said.
We want to weigh that.
Correct. There's risk either way.
Yeah.
So.
Dr. T, there's the tenant's kind of its own issue, but you know, from a due diligence standpoint, you don't have to cut it off for our sake. I mean, we can continue designing if you're in the due diligence or if you're not. You know what I mean? It's going to take until probably beginning of March to get a set of documents out anyway. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
if you want that whole due diligence time frame, it's not like you're going to start construction next month or anything.
Can we bid on a building we don't own yet?
That's
Go out before we take
That's a
possession?
good question, because
a fun question. Yeah.
we'll have to weigh the bid window scenario again. We did get, in our opinion, fairly lucky on one hand. On the other hand, you know, good bidder solicitation on the primary. But if we have to wait till June and there is a discrepancy between when we can bid a building you don't own yet, I would think a project's just a project regardless of the building owner, but we'd have to look into that. But if we've got to wait till June to
We
bid,
can
that's
bid a
exactly
theoretical
tough.
building on a theoretical property, but I don't, you know,
Right.
we have a lot more rules.
I don't think you can sign a contract that might get a little tricky.
Yeah.
So
That's
that could impact the construction time.
or the decision to close later or close now, because again, that, I don't wanna get in that situation risk wise
But
where,
if you close in January, it shouldn't be a problem.
well, closing in January means we take on a tenant. Yeah.
Right.
And that's the decision that we kind of need to be aware of. So another big question to figure out is, can we bid a building? We don't know.
It's a great question.
Yeah.
We'll talk to Connor and find out.
But I think we could get the design work done if you guys are willing or wanting to do that, but we wouldn't even have to bid it until we're ready to, just because the designs doesn't mean it has to go straight to the streets to be bid. So if you want to keep the design piece going and have it ready to go for when you guys are ready to pull the trigger, we can definitely do that piece of it, but definitely
As long as
understand.
it's less than 132,000.
That's right. That's next on the agenda, right? Yeah.
I say we just kind of wait and see what the tenant wants to do.
So I can say, like, if the tenant says like, well, I'm planning on being out in February,
Yeah.
then
Yeah,
that's
we go
one
from
thing,
there.
but if the tenant says I'm planning on being here till the end of my lease, then
Yeah.
it's like that, we kind of need to know where they're at.
And you don't know, I mean, it's their business about how maybe they paid through July and they're gonna be there till July, okay, well, that's between them, but it's good to know. So,
Yeah, like Nathan said earlier, we're gonna have risk either way, so once we have all the answers, we can just lay it out, we can discuss it, make a decision and
Yeah.
go from there, but yeah, I think until we have all those answers, I think we just kind of sit back and wait.
Conversation for next meeting.
great, we'll bring it back around, and I said to Connor that we would probably, I'd get back to him after our conversation tonight, and probably we would need him to come have a conversation.
You can have on the Zoom call.
Yeah.
I mean, if we leased a building, which is commonly done by school districts, could we bid projects in that?
There's nothing in the front end specific to building ownership. It's an address and then the project specific. So I gotta think you'd be okay bidding it. I think you'd be hesitant until you own it, signing contracts.
Oh, yeah.
Where
Yeah.
it can be the issue.
We want to be careful about leasing because leasing goes towards our debt. We have plans to maximize our
Yeah.
debt, so we wouldn't want to take away capacity. So that's one reason we would not want to enter this.
Good, thank you very much.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
everyone.
Awesome.
Thank you,
Looks
Lee.
great.
Appreciate you being on, and thanks everybody.
Thank you.
for doing a great job, and so.
Hey, everyone.
See you later.
Thank
See ya.
you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
You're fine.
All right, related to facilities. To consider / approve the amendment to professional services agreement with CMDA for irrigation design services at the Gilbert Middle School for the track. Which would be a modification of $4,000. Did you have notes on that again?
I do not have notes on that, as
Okay.
Steven's running out the building.
Okay, essentially, we,
Yeah,
think
I
it was
have it, but
Brent.
can you give me my screen?
Yeah, I think,
I mean, it's in there.
Brent
It
with
is.
grounds essentially. That, hey, we need to adapt the plan related to irrigation.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you remember, we didn't have irrigation in there in the first place. And then through meetings and discussions, we definitely need irrigation in there. So that was where this change came in.
If we're gonna keep it as nice as the other ball fields.
Yeah,
Yes.
makes sense.
Yes.
And, yeah, I mean, we had plenty of people want us to put in a turf practice field and, so let's at least make a really nice grass one.
Yes.
I think it's gonna be cheaper when we get the water bills. After my head went right away.
Plenty of ways to get water. Anyway.
Yeah,
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
I
All opposed? Okay, that is approved. Up next, we have consider / approve the amendment to the professional services agreement with CMBA for the district office renovation design services at $132,000. And that is, there's some cost containment essentially with the the design work that had already been done on the old building, like, you know, she said here, there's, I said it's, might not be an exact equal, but, we're not starting from scratch, and that was an important
Yeah, it's
clarification that we
unfortunate.
had, so.
Yeah.
And they were able to, in some cases, as we went through this, in some cases, they were able to make the shift of some of that work over into the new work, but not all of it. And so that's where we are with this. So a little bit of a change for us there, but
Could be, I mean, some soil sampling and different things like that, that was already done at the old location. But we spend money to make wise decisions sometimes.
Yeah, and we knew we were gonna incur this, right?
Yeah.
We shifted the plan late in the game, so I'll motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
I,
All opposed? All right, next, consider / approve the resolution supporting the proposed use of SAVE revenue for an athletic facility infrastructure project. That is the replacement of the turf at
We
the,
have the hearing tonight
high school.
at the high school, yeah, the replacement of the term. So we have the hearing tonight, so the next move is just this board resolution to move forward to use save funds for athletic facilities.
And we've been setting aside this money over the last 7 years or whatever, specific for this purpose.
Yes.
We can set the money aside, we can save the money for whatever we say we want to save it for, but when it comes to actually spending it, it does take board action.
Because
Sure.
it's athletics.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So the community could come say,
Yeah.
no, we don't want you to use the money for that.
That changed a few years ago on the description and the use of the save funds. It's just a little legality thing, but this is all we have to do. We've done, after tonight, we've done our due diligence. We can move forward with the bidding, the scope of the work, and De Novo is going to be handling that with their timeline of doing the others. It meets their Stephen said it just fits right in with the other projects going on, so we thought that we needed to have those services anyway, so they're just gonna pick up this along the way.
And that line
We will
item
need
not
it.
go away.
Yeah.
We'll do this again in 10, 15 years.
Yeah, we will need a roll call vote when we get to.
Okay. Any questions on that or what we're doing?
No, we've talked about it before. Yeah.
Okay, and we got a motion, we have a second?
Oh, motion was, maybe, okay.
I'll second.
Okay. Okay, we're gonna start with Josh,
Yes.
Nathan,
Yes.
Melissa,
Yes.
Nikki,
Yes.
and Andrew.
Yes.
All right. Old business, the second reading of revised board policies listed below with possible action to waive the third reading and approve. Was there anything standing out in that from our policy committee that?
This is the second time you all have seen these.
Yeah.
And these are just things that have been reviewed. We didn't make any changes to these. Let's just review them.
Yeah, these are straightforward.
Only adjustment, it's minor and brief, on 208. That's ad hoc committees, the exhibit. On that ad hoc committee membership, the first sentence says ad hoc committee members may be appointed by the board. Well, then 2 sentences later, it says only the board or superintendent has the authority to appoint members at the ad hoc committee. So I guess I would recommend just getting rid of that first sentence and just leaving it, that second one, pretty much the board or the superintendent can appoint board members. You guys see that at 208 exhibit, it's that second page, it's that third paragraph. So that first sentence and the third sentence, I just think it's kind of confusing because it kind of states the same thing 2 different ways. Ad hoc committee members may be appointed by the board may be
Doesn't say
requested.
must.
No,
Yeah.
then it says only the board or superintendent has it, so it's kind of saying the same thing twice, but yet it.
So we changed that language, put it in May. We try to make it more generic.
Can we just get rid of the first sentence or not, and just leave it and go to this? Only the board or superintendent has the authority to appoint members of the ad hoc committee? Or do we, I'm just saying, do we need the first one? Because if I read the first one, I think, oh, only board members can do it. Well, then later on, it says all board or superintendent can do it. is I mean, I guess we can leave it.
No, I think that works.
Let's think about this for a second though.
Yeah.
This is a review,
Mhm.
Yeah,
so I think what the best thing to do is just pull it.
pull it, that's fine.
Well, it would have to send it back to policy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
go back to the committee to.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, again, I just read it as, I
Yeah,
read the first time, I said, oh yeah, board members gonna be appointed, and then it said, I just got myself kind of confused.
I think it's just saying that board members may appoint someone to a committee, but board members and the superintendent are the only ones that actually have the authority to do it.
Yeah,
So
it's fine, again, it's fine, we don't need to pull it. I just-
it doesn't say like ad hoc committee members will be appointed by the board, it says they may be.
No, and I like the term, I like the may in there, I
We're
was.
putting more
less
may
is more.
in our policies to give more flexibility.
But this is
Yeah, I
actually a
noticed
policy,
this.
this is actually a policy though that we just reviewed and we didn't make any changes to.
Yeah,
and that's why I mentioned that we probably need to pull it to
Yeah.
follow protocol.
Yeah.
I'm okay to leave it, I was just bringing it up for conversation purposes, after I read through it, I agree, it gives us flexibility, I am okay with how it reads out there. I'll make a motion to approve, and I'll waive the third reading. I'm not gonna go through all those, that first section.
The listed policies,
Yeah, the listed policies there,
we have a
the
motion
reviewed ones.
with waiving the third reading. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Next section is a second reading of revised board policies as listed with possible action to waive the third reading and approve.
So these are ones that policy committee has made changes to them. And this is the second time we're seeing these.
I'll make a motion to approve as stated with the waiving the third reading.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, new business. So acknowledging the semester graduates. T, explain why we do this.
Board policy.
Yes, I
Yeah.
know, like, you have a list of students there that qualify and have applied for early graduation and they are in front of you.
On average, how many do we typically have? I feel like this is a lot.
I would agree with you.
Yeah,
Usually it
just
feels like it's one or two,
Yeah.
and so this is like a fair number.
Six.
Is there a reason that we have more this year? Or
Not
coincidence?
any specific reason, nothing clearly
They
stated.
just
that
completed all their credits and stuff
completed
and they're ready to go and move on.
Okay.
Okay.
I guess that's a question for our high school Del. Do you know why the kids are graduating early?
Yeah, there we go.
Well, Maya's my cousin.
See?
All right.
Yeah.
I think she's just graduating because she's ready to move on. She's like, well, I have the education and I'm ready she knows what she wants to do. She wants to go to Iowa State for culinary and business. And so she decided she might as well. So,
Wow,
See?
okay.
but I don't know the other ones.
And this is just an acknowledgement because the board policy says that once they meet the requirements. There's no, they've met the requirements to graduate, so it's just an acknowledgement.
Okay.
All right, let it be acknowledged. Financial reports.
The only thing I have for tonight, that I just. As I was reviewing the financials and for past the quarterly, last month was the quarterly report, and so October. The one thing that I just noticed that the expenditures are a little bit higher than I would anticipate. As you can see, the year-to-date variance and the monthly are ahead of expenditures, are ahead of a budget. So I would just say that I would hope that that would start slowing down. Maybe it was more of the catch up of everybody coming back to school, ordering things. Because we do have in place and everybody has received the message of, we are trying to slow down and the expenses, and we are on the need to have versus nice to have this year. So, we'll just continue to watch this and, hope that those expenses, it slows down with that and we can, get closer to, possibly a green instead of a red. So that's the only thing as I was reviewing that caught my attention. Does anybody else, anything else they want to review?
On the expenses side, Gail, nothing, I mean, is it just all over the board? You said there's not one or two things that pop like, oh, we are over 60 grand
No,
on this.
It's
Okay.
a
It's
lot
just
of
a
categories
Yeah,
and, some of it is definitely timing as I review it.
yeah.
But we're just starting, our first, expenses for salaries would be September, but in October, we're really, we are seeing more, substitutes. We're seeing, some more additional expenses with orders and supplies coming in, because teachers are coming back in September and they're really seeing that what they may need. So that's why I'm hoping to see it kind of level out as we go the next couple of months. Because we are reviewing and, the expenditures and we have, spread the word of holding back and to just as needs, so. We'll see, and I say that as we're getting notices of increased cost of energy and garbage, and so just, cost of living is just increasing for, what else did we get? We got garbage and
Story County garbage, they said up to 20%
for the landfill and
Yeah, it's no longer going
Well,
boom, it's going.
12% for,
Alliant.
utilities, so.
So the conversation that Gail and I were talking about and other superintendents is that when the SSA rate is, what was it, 2.5 last spring, last summer, and then you get that they're raising the electric bill 12 to 15%, the garbage bill 20%, just doesn't, it's not apples and oranges, and so it's a concern for everyone across the state.
So
they just notify you. I mean, it's already done.
So we'll continue to have conversations at our director levels of, we need to be efficient. However that is, we just need to be mindful, kind of control what we can control as we move forward, and so we'll just continue to monitor this and see if there's anything that is happening beyond this, but that's all I was going to bring attention unless somebody else has something.
Do you have any projections for next month? Are you thinking it'll be more on target or no
I
idea?
have what I'd like to see. I have no idea. We just started in the month. So our first batch of bills will be approved tonight and sent out, so we don't really have an idea.
Okay.
At this point anyway.
The plant maintenance, is that where our utilities come out of?
Yes.
And do we have projections with updated rates? Have we gone that far yet to know what that might affect or?
No, so the only thing, obviously, it's not in the budget, a 12% is not in the budget. So the budget would have to tweak, but I say that as, when I do that, I'm gonna have to pull back on something else because our budget, in order to stay to be at net zero, we need our budget max is there. So it cannot reflect a 12% increase. So we would have to find savings elsewhere and we would have to dig further in to find that. So that's another conversation of multiple conversations about where else could we find the savings. So, but I'm not done with the line item budget yet. So we are just finalizing the certified enrollment. So now I will go back and make sure that the big ticket items are tuitions. So I estimate our open enrolled out to other districts. Now that we have certified enrollment, I will go back and tweak those numbers. Maybe there's an overage. And so then we can offset that and move that to the line item of the utilities. So I will need to go back and that's part of the process of as we go through the next couple months, and as I do for the comprehensive financial model, the current budget has to be as accurate as possible, so I'll tweak that. Because that will obviously go into the next year, or the next couple of years. So, that's part of the process as I move forward. And when I change the budget, or if I change the budget, I will bring that to your attention at the monthly reports. But I will be reviewing that and seeing if some changes need to be made, or where those changes can be made. Because tuition is definitely linked to enrollment, and those are the big ticket items. So we can do some shifting if that is a possibility.
Looking forward to a nice new building that we don't have to spend as much gas on. All right, the consent agenda, is there anything needs to be pulled or discussed? Do you have a motion?
I'll motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, I see a calendar, we got the convention next week, December 9th be the next meeting, it's our annual meeting, and January 13th. Board meeting, and then the 27th is the financial work session with Travis and potentially some enrollment discussions as well. Do I have a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, thank you.